Someone made nearly $1 million on Polymarket from a series of remarkably accurate bets about Iran. The anonymous trader predicted numerous unannounced US and Israeli military actions against Iran. It included, for instance, the Israeli strike in October 2024, the US airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites last June, and the joint US-Israeli surprise attack last month. According to Bubblemaps, which is an analytics firm, the bettor used anonymous accounts to place these bets, and of course, crypto was always involved somewhere. 93% of their wages won $10,000. Marshall Kearns in Washington.
Richard,
what are we? This is somewhat extraordinary. What we'll learn, I just have to sort of come back to this basic: no smoke without fire.
That's what the experts are saying too, Richard. There's a lot of questions about this, but let's just look at the hard data first. As you mentioned, the folks at Bubblemaps, which is an analytics firm that analyzes blockchain transactions, including all the transactions on Polymarket, they're the ones that sifted through this data. And what they found was that one user had multiple accounts that were all connected and were making dozens of very well-timed and prescient bets. You explained already how this goes back to 2024 with bets that were placed in the days and hours before Israeli strikes in Iran, in the days and hours before the U.S. decision last summer to bomb the nuclear facilities inside Iran, and also earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, when the current war was started with that U.S.-Israeli surprise attack. All things considered, Richard, this trader profited $967,000. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the win percentage here, because that's the experts are so up in arms about.
Right.
They say that even the most talented, shrewd, high-frequency traders on these event markets, they can average about 51, 52, 53% win rate. So you win a little more than you lose, and that's how you get your profit. This user, they were hitting 83% win rate for all their Iran bets, and for the big bets over 10 grand, $10,000, 93% rate, which is shocking. Richard, last thing I need to say. Number one, we don't actually know who this person is. You already mentioned that Polymarket is anonymous, and that is really why we are hitting a brick wall in terms of trying to figure out who this is. And there could be a reasonable explanation. Of course, that is always possible. Not saying that this is definitely insider trading. We're just saying it's suspicious. And we reached out to Polymarket, and they did not respond to our request for comment.
Marshall, one of the things that I always find interesting about the whole Polymarket and the whole sort of fact betting type industry is the specificity of the question and the bet. It's not like who's going to win the 4:30 at Aintree, who's going to win the Belmont in the 7 o'clock stakes. These are very specific that relate to a particular type that requires, well, it's fascinating.
We've seen a lot, especially on Polymarket, of some very, very specific markets that are being created. And we've seen on their social media accounts as well, they've been trying to jump on the hot trend. Whenever there's something in the news, they will post on X, on Twitter, and say, hey, we just made a market on this. Go check it out. So the specificity is for them an opportunity for a lot of profit, but also it opens up a vulnerability, because the more specific something is, there is a risk that someone could be in position to alter that outcome. And of course, that is when you start getting into the integrity of the markets. And I should point out, Richard, that Polymarket just yesterday announced new rules they called the market integrity rules that they said would restrict the ability of insider activity on its platforms, which, by the way, they've got their international site that is out of reach of U.S. federal regulations. That's where all these Iran trades are happening. They also have a U.S. site for U.S. users, but it's not really up and running yet. But the Trump administration did give them approval last year to launch it.
I'm grateful. There we go. That's insider trading cases. Thank you. Bubblemaps, thank you, Marshall, is the firm that flagged all of this. It tracks blockchain transactions. Its CEO is Nicolas Vaiman. Nicolas is with me now. I'm grateful to you, sir. We won't get into too much detail on the actual case that we're talking about here, Nicolas Vaiman, but instead, this idea that it's unregulated, that you can have an anonymous, your Bitcoin account or your crypto account is your identity, is I suppose it is the exact opposite of KYC, know your customer regulations, that you find everywhere else in the financial industry.
Yeah, completely. Hello, everybody. Richard, thank you for having me. Polymarket is a very special prediction market because it is based on a blockchain. It is based on Polygon, meaning that the underlying technology is the blockchain. So every Polymarket account is abstracted, we can say, by a crypto wallet. And then the user has the opportunity to fund this account either with a bank account, with a traditional bank, or with crypto. But of course, for most of the insiders that we've exposed, this is not the first time we've done this, but for most of these insiders, they use crypto. Why? Because if you use your bank account, the information can get subpoenaed by your government very easily at the click of a button. But if your account gets funded by your crypto wallet, that itself got funded by an unregulated offshore centralized exchange, you're basically off grid. So for the insiders who are benefiting from various privileged information, of course, they're going to pick the crypto funding.
So this is an accident waiting to happen, in a sense. And we always know that regulators are always 3 paces behind, just by dint of experience. Regulators are behind those who will be wish to do ill. What needs to happen for these very specific types of cases without creating some massive regulatory burden?
It is a fascinating question, and it goes into crypto at large, because crypto moves at the speed of light, but regulation moves at the speed of paperwork. So by the time new regulations are drafted, crypto has already morphed into something else, on a new chain, under a new name, but it's basically the same. And we've seen this happen so many times in crypto, where regulations come 1 year behind, and it's already a lost battle. I also want to add that jurisdiction in crypto is a nightmare, because what happens when, as Marshall said, Polymarket is not even in the U.S. yet. So you're basically like, what jurisdiction are we even on here? You could have, for example, a scam happen in Dubai, scamming a bunch of people in Europe. Who's even in charge? Where are you even having a court?
But Nicolas,
Nicolas, good.
At the end of the day, we have to rely on, I suppose, an element of integrity. I mean, no, well, we don't have to rely on it. We've either got to rely on regulation, and if there are people who are determined to be bad actors and use insider information and setup, then we have to find ways of stopping that and punishing. Otherwise, frankly, should we just turn off the lights and go home?
No, I completely agree with you. And this is what actually happened, I think, a couple of weeks back in Israel. An insider military personnel was arrested. We didn't have much information about who exactly, but he got arrested. And I actually believe that we have to enforce some kind of regulation. But now it is state of the art. It is up to Polymarket and Kelsey to find the good resolution of these issues.
I'm so grateful you joined us tonight.
I also want to add something, Richard.
Yeah, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add that in many cases, it is very hard to differentiate between an insider or somebody that's going to be close to an insider. Let me give you an example. In the case of military activity, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that are involved.
Right.
When you talk about insiders in this case, most people, they intuitively point towards like high degree lieutenant or general or high government official. But this can be troops on the ground. It can be people fueling the jet. It can be intelligence. It can be, operations. So it is very hard to decipher like who's behind the crypto Polymarket accounts.
I'm grateful, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight on Quest Means Business. Thank you, sir, Nicholas. Now, I do need to point out to you, of course, total openness and transparency. CNN has a partnership with Kalshi, and we use its data to cover major events. Although our